On a business side of things, I mean, is she successful? Is she a 45-year-old successful businesswoman now? She does have her products. She does, you know, we're led to believe they are selling. She does have things going on with Cookie Queens, which is going to come out soon with Netflix. I mean, is she happy, do you think?
I don't know if she's happy or not, but any money she's made will probably be wiped out by Harry losing his court case against the Daily Mail, I should think, because that's going to cost him quite a few million. So
it depends who's bankrolling him.
Well, with them, you know, money comes in and money goes out, doesn't it? You're never quite sure where they are financially. It's at one moment they're up, next moment they're down. But I think she's going to try other projects. I mean, I don't know how well this thing went down in Australia. As always, Harry had to get in on the act and call in on a video link or on his phone to sort of make an appearance. But I just don't know. I mean, did the jam go well? Did she sell lots of jam, apparently?
Well, I wonder, you know, would she have sold that jam if she'd been Meghan Markle, the actress, or is she selling it because she's HRH, you know, the Duchess of Sussex? You know, who knows? But I don't think I would spend that amount of money on a pot of jam or a luxury candle. I haven't got the salary for that.
That well.
What do you think she needs or wants for her birthday this year? And I'm not talking about gifts and presents. I'm maybe talking about direction or things for the future. What do you think Meghan needs to do now?
Well, I think any normal person would say that it'd be good if she managed to reconcile with her own father before it's too late. You know, I think any normal person would say, you know, what do you want? You've got financial things, you've got a family yourself. It would be nice to do that, but there's no prospect of that seemingly happening at the moment. There's no suggestion that she's going to travel to see him, which I think is very, very sad. Yes, we've now had this meeting with the King, but, you know, it doesn't mean that all problems have been solved overnight. So I don't know what she wants, really. I think
Sussex gang, another day, another circus. And somehow the British media machine has managed to turn Meghan Markle's 45th birthday into yet another royal soap opera. Honestly, at this point, you almost have to admire the commitment. A birthday should be about celebration. Family, friends, reflection, gratitude, perhaps a little cake, and a moment to breathe. But apparently, when your name is Meghan Markle, even your birthday becomes an invitation for commentators to sit around a table and speculate about your bank account, your father, your marriage, your in-laws, your birthday cards, and, apparently, the contents of envelopes that nobody has actually seen. And that is precisely what makes this discussion so revealing. Because listen carefully to what is actually being presented here. At one point, the conversation raises the suggestion that Meghan's commercial earnings could supposedly be wiped out by Prince Harry's legal bills. Could they? Perhaps. Do we have evidence presented in this discussion establishing that Meghan's earnings have actually been wiped out? No, and that distinction matters, because there is a world of difference between discussing financial pressures and announcing, or strongly implying, that a couple's finances are somehow collapsing. Harry has pursued major legal battles against sections of the British press because he has argued that unlawful intrusion and the treatment of his family have had serious consequences. Those legal cases have undoubtedly involved substantial costs. But notice how quickly the conversation moves from the existence of legal expenses to speculation about the state of the Sussexes' entire financial future. That leap is doing an awful lot of heavy lifting. And this is where the Sussex story becomes almost comical. When Harry and Meghan sign commercial deals, the narrative can become they're cashing in. When they pursue independent projects, they're desperate for money. When they achieve commercial success, they're chasing relevance. And when there are legal costs, could everything be wiped out? Do you see the pattern? Whatever happens, the narrative somehow finds a way to circle back to financial anxiety. It is almost as if there is a predetermined conclusion and the facts are simply invited to audition for supporting roles. And let's be very clear, financial scrutiny is legitimate. Harry and Meghan are public figures. Their business ventures attract attention. their contracts, productions and commercial decisions can absolutely be discussed. But serious commentary requires something very simple. Evidence, not atmosphere. Not perhaps. Not one wonders. Not could it be. And certainly not turning speculation into a dramatic financial prognosis. Because if we're going to talk about the Sussexes' finances, let's talk about what is actually known rather than constructing an imaginary balance sheet from the comfort of a television studio. And the financial speculation is only the opening act, because Meghan's 45th birthday apparently needed another ingredient: her father, Thomas Markle. Now this is where the conversation becomes much more personal. The panel essentially argues that reconciliation with her father should be an obvious priority, particularly because of his health struggles. And on a purely human level, I understand why people might feel that way. Family relationships are complicated. Estrangement is painful. Illness can make people reflect. But there is a rather enormous piece missing from this discussion. The person whose relationship is being dissected is Meghan. Not the panel, not the viewers, not the newspapers. Meghan. And she is the person who actually has to live with the consequences of whatever decision she makes. So when commentators say reconciliation would be the obvious thing for any normal person, I would ask a very simple question. Who gets to define normal? Because families are not television scripts. There isn't a producer standing backstage whispering, "Okay, Meghan, it's your 45th birthday. Emotional reconciliation scene in 3, 2, 1. Real families are messy. History matters. Trust matters. Boundaries matter. And personal decisions cannot be reduced to whether something would make a particularly satisfying newspaper headline. Most importantly, the discussion itself appears to acknowledge that there is no evidence Meghan is planning such a reconciliation for her birthday. So we have another fascinating contradiction. The panel discusses what Meghan supposedly should do. They speculate about whether she will do it. And finally, they acknowledge there is no indication that she will. That is not reporting. That's commentary built around an imagined possibility. And Sussex gang, this is where we need to stop allowing speculation to masquerade as revelation. Because there is a huge difference between Meghan has reconciled with her father. Meghan is considering reconciliation with her father. And perhaps Meghan might reconcile with her father because it would be what a normal person would do. Those are three completely different statements. Only the first two would require actual evidence. The third is essentially somebody's opinion dressed up as a royal talking point. And somehow we are supposed to treat it like breaking news. But wait, because apparently the birthday mystery doesn't end with Meghan's father. Oh no, we must also investigate the birthday cards. Yes, Sussex gang, the birthday cards. The British media machine apparently cannot resist the question. Did the royal family send Meghan a birthday message? Now, this is where the conversation becomes almost wonderfully absurd. William? Maybe not. Catherine? Probably not. Camilla? Unlikely. The king? Well, perhaps. And why? Because maybe there is supposedly some slow, long-term process of rebuilding contact following Harry's meeting with his father at Highgrove. Look at the language. Maybe. Possibly. Unlikely. Could have, might have. And yet, somehow, by the end of the discussion, we've been taken on an emotional journey about a birthday card that nobody on the panel has actually seen. This is not a revelation. It is speculation about speculation. And that distinction deserves to be shouted from the rooftops. Because if King Charles sent Meghan a private birthday card, that's private. If he didn't, that's private too. If William didn't send one, we don't know. If Catherine did or didn't send one, we don't know. And if a card was exchanged privately between members of a family, the public has no automatic entitlement to inspect the contents. Yet the media fascination with these tiny personal details is extraordinary. Imagine applying the same obsession to almost anyone else. Did your sister text you? Did your father send a card? Did your cousin call? Was the message warm enough? Was there an emoji? At some point, you have to step back and ask, why are grown adults being treated like characters in a permanent royal reality show? And more importantly, why does Meghan seem to occupy such a disproportionate amount of this obsession? Because notice something. Even when the subject is her birthday, the conversation isn't really about Meghan's achievements. It's about what she supposedly hasn't repaired, who hasn't contacted her, who might have contacted her, whether she has reconciled with her father, whether the royal family has acknowledged her, whether Harry's legal battles are draining their money. It's almost as if Meghan's existence must constantly be measured against somebody else's approval. And that is precisely the narrative I find so fascinating. Because Meghan left royal life. Harry and Meghan established a separate life. They built commercial projects. They pursued charitable work. They created media productions. They continued their advocacy. Harry continued his legal challenges. Meghan developed her own creative and lifestyle ventures. And yet the British media conversation repeatedly drags them back into the same room. The palace, the family, the titles, the money, the feud, the reconciliation, the invitation, the birthday card, round and round and round, another day, another circus. And somehow the British media never seems to run out of tickets. But here's the uncomfortable question. What if there is no dramatic birthday plot? What if Meghan simply celebrated her birthday privately with the people she actually wants around her? What if she isn't sitting by the window waiting for William to call? What if she isn't refreshing her phone, wondering whether Catherine sent a message? What if she isn't constructing her entire emotional existence around whether Buckingham Palace acknowledges her? What if her birthday is simply her birthday? That possibility seems almost too boring for a media ecosystem addicted to royal drama. And that Sussex gang may be the real story. Because the media doesn't necessarily need something to happen, it only needs something to discuss. A possibility becomes a talking point. A talking point becomes a headline. A headline becomes another discussion. And suddenly an event that never happened has occupied hours of public conversation. That's the machine. And Meghan has become one of its most reliable subjects. But there is another element worth examining. The suggestion that the Sussexes' financial circumstances are constantly fluctuating. Of course, they can fluctuate. Anyone with businesses, investments, production costs, legal expenses, and multiple income streams can experience changing financial circumstances. That's called reality. The problem begins when normal financial complexity is transformed into a story of impending disaster without evidence. Because let's remember something incredibly important. The Sussexes are not required to provide the public with a daily financial statement. They don't need to announce every contract. They don't need to publish every expense. And they certainly don't need to prove their financial health every time a commentator decides to speculate about it. If there is credible evidence of financial distress, report it. If there isn't, say clearly that it is speculation. That standard should apply to everyone. And this is where I think the Sussex gang should remain especially sharp. We don't need to defend every single business decision Harry and Meghan make. We don't need to pretend every project is guaranteed to succeed. We don't need to turn them into flawless superheroes. That's not the point. The point is intellectual honesty. If something is confirmed, call it confirmed. If something is alleged, call it alleged. If something is speculation, call it speculation. And if something is simply somebody's opinion, please don't package it like classified intelligence, because that's what keeps happening in this endless Sussex conversation. A commentator asks a question. The question becomes a possibility. The possibility becomes a narrative. And the narrative eventually starts being repeated as though it were established fact. That is how myths are manufactured. And birthdays make this especially obvious. Meghan's birthday doesn't require a royal reconciliation. It doesn't require a father-daughter reunion. It doesn't require a palace announcement. It doesn't require a birthday card from anybody. It doesn't require William. It doesn't require Catherine. It doesn't require Camilla. It doesn't even require the king. What it requires is Meghan deciding what she wants her day to look like. And frankly, after years of public scrutiny, perhaps the most radical thing she could do is simply enjoy it. No palace permission, no royal validation, no British media approval, no dramatic reconciliation storyline, just a woman turning 45 and living her life. And maybe that's precisely why the speculation keeps coming. Because independence is not nearly as exciting to the royal gossip industry as conflict. Peace doesn't sell as many headlines. A quiet birthday doesn't generate as many panels. A private family doesn't provide much material for endless conjecture. But conflict is content. And Harry and Meghan remain exceptionally valuable content. So when you hear another panel discussing whether Meghan's money is disappearing, whether she will reconcile with her father, whether the king sent a card, whether William contacted her, or whether some imagined royal thaw is underway, pause for 1 second. Ask, what do we actually know? What has been confirmed? What has been sourced? And what has simply been invented in the gap between those two things? Because Sussex gang, sometimes the most revealing part of a royal story isn't what happened. It's how desperately people speculate about what might have happened. And that is exactly why this birthday conversation deserves more scrutiny than another round of outrage. Meghan doesn't need a birthday rescue storyline. Harry doesn't need another financial doom prophecy. And the royal family doesn't need a fictionalized card exchange to manufacture a reconciliation arc. If something genuinely happens, we'll discuss it. If a reconciliation is confirmed, we'll examine it. If there is a meaningful change in family relations, we'll talk about it. But until that happens, let's call speculation what it is. Speculation. Because after all these years, surely the British media can give the Sussexes at least one birthday without turning it into another episode of the never-ending royal circus. Apparently not. And that, Sussex gang, is the real headline.